Hello everyone, it is a great pleasure to talk to you. Today we are going to discuss the Spotify guide and how to implement the Spotify model. My name is Vili and I am a senior project manager and project management team lead at Scale Focus. Give me just a moment to share my screen and we can go over the details. Now, Spotify is a pretty famous company. It was founded in 2006 in Sweden, like IKEA and many other companies. It is pretty famous now and has over 406 million monthly active users and 180 million premium users. Considering that this is a tech conference, I would expect that probably most of you are part of the premium subscribers, those ads. Spotify has been a success from its very beginning. Many companies try to understand where the success comes from, how the company was able to grow so fast in such a small period. The latest data is 400, over 400 million users. That's from the end of last year, which is 15 years since the foundation of the company. So this huge success, now the company is available, like the streaming services of Spotify are available nearly in every country around the globe. So back to the question, how did they do it? What is the secret ingredient? Apart from the Spotify platform and streaming service, what Spotify gave us was the Spotify model. The Spotify model is new and interesting. As I mentioned, the company was built in 2006, and in 2012, they shared a white paper that described the Spotify model and Spotify approach that they were using. In short, it's something like this. And we'll go over the details of different elements of the Spotify model. Initially, Spotify started as a purely agile company. They employed Scrum, but at some point, even back in 2012, they had about 30 teams. And 30 teams managing under Scrum was such a difficult thing to do. So they knew that they had to do something, and they came up with the Spotify model. Now, some people believe that it is a trimmed down version of SAFe, another scaled agile model. There isn't clearly a boundary when Spotify was founded and when SAFe was founded. So we'll treat them as two different things for the purposes of the presentation. Now, managing 30 teams is quite the challenge. So the first, the basic element of the Spotify model is the squad. A squad is basically a team, pretty similar to the Scrum teams. They feel like a mini startup, they're innovative, they can set up their own processes, they establish the way they work and collaborate. They're self-organized, they're connected to the organization, but they do decide their own rules. They're cross-functional, meaning that you have all of the skills needed to basically develop a product from scratch and deliver it to the market within the team. And they consist of between 5 and 7 engineers, usually no more than 10. As you mentioned, you have all of the skills needed to go to the market. So the different types of squads you have in the Spotify model, mostly you have feature squads, you have client app and infrastructure squads that are enabling the feature squads to deliver their product. A feature might be account setup, it might be profile, it might be all of the different features and sections you see in the Spotify application. Now, how the squads operate, it can be pure Scrum, it can be Kanban, it can be Scrumban. Again, there isn't one rule. As you can imagine, 30 or more squads, you don't want to have this one-size-fits-all approach. You want them to feel that they operate in a process that works best for them. Within a squad, you have the regular roles. You have the developers, you have the engineers, you have a scrum master, or more like an agile coach, because again, not every squad is using Scrum. And you have a product owner. You have somebody who is prioritizing the backlog, somebody who is responsible for the overall product vision. Here, unlike Scrum, in Scrum, the team should advise the product owner. It's something that happens here as well, but here the squad can also have ideas of their own for different features, and it is allowed and even encouraged that the team members do have these feature projects that they go to the market with. They can test them with like a small user group, and if it works, it works. It stays there. Like some of the best features that Spotify has have come originally from ideas that different engineers had. If it doesn't work, they scrap it and they continue. So they are constantly encouraging innovation. The squads or the different teams, they also work in the infrastructure of a chapter. As you can see here, we have several squads, and then we have chapters. Chapters are communities of practice. A chapter is a group of people with a similar background. For instance, we can have a Java chapter, we can have a product owners chapter, an Agile chapter, a chapter dedicated to design or to quality assurance. The purpose of the chapter, first the chapter has a chapter lead. This is a person who governs the chapter, who is responsible for the growth of each individual in the chapter, growing the competencies, developing them, training them even. This is the person responsible for hiring the right people for the different squads. And also, this is the line manager, somebody who is responsible for performance reviews, salary reviews, etc. Now, a chapter, why it's important and why this is personally something that I like. As I mentioned, community of practice. Sometimes you might have a team that is mostly front-end, you have only one back-end developer. And this back-end developer can, of course, communicate with the team, share ideas, but it's a completely different thing when you have a community of back-end engineers, community of people that speak the same language, are interested in the same things, have the similar background, and they can build together and develop the architecture of a product. Each chapter has their own rules, and rules, for instance, on even basic rules like merging, code reviews, code quality, what is the unit test coverage percentage that we should have. The different chapters can have different chapter activities. So a squad is not only working on features, even though we have feature squads or feature teams, they're also working for the whole product and improving the overall quality of the product. This happens through chapter tasks. Chapters, they meet regularly, whether it is once a week or once every couple of weeks. It really depends on how the chapter is set up. And they discuss all of the technical issues, ideas, and a roadmap for the development of the product. The next level is tribes. So whenever we have more than one squad, squads that are working closely together in a specific area of the product, so they might have some dependencies between themselves, we have a tribe. A tribe is usually a collection of squads up to 100 people, so that's a pretty huge number of people. Within the tribes, we still have the chapters. These are the same chapters that we have even if we have only squads. But here we also have tribe leads. The tribe leads, they ensure that the common vision, the roadmap is there, and all of the squads that they are aligned and the dependencies are minimized or managed properly. Another community of interest that is available in the Spotify model are the so-called guilds. So again, we have the squads here on this level. We have a tribe, the collection of squads that work closely on a specific feature. And here we have the guilds. Unlike the chapters that are horizontal and they consist of people that have the same background, the same specialty, the same expertise, guilds, they are communities of interest, meaning, let's say that you're interested in quality assurance. You don't need to be a QA per se. You can join the quality assurance guild. Of course, probably most of the people there will be QAs, but you can contribute, you can have different initiatives, you can share knowledge, or you can share concerns related to quality in that guild. If you're interested in Agile and what are the different Agile practices within the company, you can join an Agile guild. All of these guilds, they are created to share knowledge, to ensure that people from various walks of life, various expertise and backgrounds have a platform where they can share ideas. Now, the Spotify model, it was developed when people were back at the office, unlike now. And like in a traditional setting, you have a squad that has, like it's co-located, has their own space at the office. Most of the walls in the Spotify office are white walls, so you can draw, you can create different skins and graphs there. You can have the team board there. So all of these people, they will be co-located. They will have access to one another, and they will have spaces for the different events that are happening. The next level is the alliance level. Remember that we said that each tribe consists of about 100 people. So when you have 200 or 300 people that have to be aligned with the company vision, we need another layer. And this other layer is called an alliance. And again, similarly to the tribes, we have an alliance leads. They usually communicate with the tribe leads who communicate with the different squads. So pretty interesting model. When it comes to release management, we have two different options. We have release trains and we have individual releases. So each squad in theory and in practice should be able to release easily, quite routinely their code to production. It should be routine, it shouldn't be drama, it shouldn't be cumbersome, it should be a very simple, easy to follow process. When we are talking about like a wholesome release, we have release trains. In this picture, we have an example of release once a week. So we have week 1 and week 2. Let's say we are developing feature A, B, and C, and feature D. By the end of week 1, you have A, B, and C done, so they can be shipped to production, but D is only partially done. Instead of hiding, instead of not releasing the feature, we use feature toggles. So A, B, and C, they're shipped to production, they're visible to end users. You can start gathering feedback on these new features. D is also shipped to production, but it's not visible. This is to ensure that all of the code is there. It can help remove some of the integration issues and also remove the hassle of different release strategies. What happens in week 2? We have features E, B, and F done. So we release the other part of functionality B, switch it on so it's visible to users. We have another feature called G that is in development. We release it as well, and it's not visible to the users. The key element to the general Spotify model is autonomy and enabling the team to work on whatever they believe is the priority, of course, coordinated with the product owner. Some of the scaled events that they have, of course, you have the regular Scrum events. You might have a daily Scrum that is usually a mandatory event. You do have a retrospective to ensure that we are improving throughout the way. However, if you're using Kanban, some of these events might not be there. The scale of the events they use is usually Scrum of Scrums. So this is a touch point between the different squads to ensure that dependencies are managed. Another way, especially now using virtual teams to do that, is the different channels. So you'd have usually a channel where all of the people in the company are there, so you can quickly communicate information, issues, or any updates. You'd have a squad channel dedicated to all of the communication. For the specific squad, you'd have the engineer, the product owner, and the agile coach there. And you'd have a chapter squad or a guild, a chapter channel or a guild channel for the different purposes. One of the most interesting events is the so-called big room planning. So how do we ensure that these squads are aligned? Remember, 30 plus squads, like 100 people, how they are aligned, how do we make sure that we are building a product that, of course, you have a fully finished increment, a feature, but at the end you don't come up with a Frankenstein of a product. The Big Room Planning is a 2-day event that happens every 3 months. It is a planning event, and we do it on quarterly basis. So we begin the year with the vision of what we want to develop, where we are, and what market share we want to cover for the year, what are the different features. And then we split it into manageable chunks, and then we plan in detail. So we start with the vision, with the input. The vision might be a product roadmap. It might be OKRs, objectives and key results for the year. It might be the vision of different squads even. Different companies implement it differently, but usually it's a roadmap. So you start with the product roadmap and all of the items that are in most cases, Jira or any other tool. In the big room planning, you start usually with an introduction. So what are the company updates? What are the architecture updates? What are the different new elements that we're introducing? What are the different technology? Any upcoming news? Not going to lie, the first big room planning that I attended was pretty interesting, let's put it that way. It was a meeting. It is a meeting where everybody attends. In the project that I was working on, it was 13 plus teams, so around 10 people in each team. So in that meeting, we had around 150 people. And my first thought was, wow, that is an expensive meeting. I wasn't really sure whether it was going to work, whether it's going to be an effective meeting, whether it's not a waste of time. It turns out it's not. So in the beginning, you set up the expectations. You might have an icebreaker to get people to talk. You start with all this shared common information for the company and for the product that you are building. And then now virtually, you would be split into different breakout rooms. In the breakout rooms, every team or every squad would have a separate room. In that room, they have to plan what they want to deliver in the next 3 months. So what are the priorities? What are the valuable features we want to develop? Why we want to develop them? And what are key risks and dependencies that we have? Yes, in the Spotify model, we try to avoid dependencies as much as possible, but this is a huge product usually. So dependencies are going to be there no matter what you do. So when you identify your plan, your high-level plan, you can then join the breakout rooms of different other teams and discuss the dependencies. For instance, we have to develop feature B in our third sprint, but it is dependent on feature A from another team. Then obviously, if we want to develop feature B in our third sprint, we have to talk to the other team to develop, if possible, feature A within their first or second sprint. So these are the type of discussions that happen in a big room planning. Trying to figure out how to deliver the product and all of these features by the time that the quarter ends. So at the end, we come up with a huge product roadmap and a dependency map. By the end of the first day, we go and have a draft plan review. Usually, the product owners of the different squads would share what is their plan. Of course, it's aligned with the team. What are the different dependencies and what are the different risks? This is why here we have a risk board. At the beginning of the second day, we continue with some of the planning, especially if you're doing the big room planning for the first time. Probably you're going to need even more than half of the second day to continue with the planning. Then towards lunchtime, we have final review of the plan with the finalized dependency mapping. Very important is that everything that is planned is also available in Jira or whatever tool that we are using for the planning. It's tangible. All of the items are linked to one another. It's very visible, so we are ensuring transparency. Under Spotify model, as in any other Agile framework, we want to ensure transparency that everybody who walks in the team space or opens a team dashboard, they can see what is the progress and what are the different issues. At the end, we can have tribal OKRs or increment objectives. Now, this is done differently in different setups. Sometimes you start with the OKRs, sometimes out of the outcomes of the big room planning, you come up with the OKRs. Very important thing that happens at the end of big room planning, first a retrospective to ensure that we are optimizing the time as much as possible, that we know what can be improved and what are action items that we can take into consideration for the next planning event. We also have a confidence vote. So imagine you have 100 and something people in a meeting. At the end of the plan, after the final review, everybody is aware. We don't hide information. Everybody knows what should be delivered by the end of the quarter. And then you ask people to vote. Do you believe that this plan is achievable? Usually, you should get a vote around 3, 4, or 5. Probably not 5, it's too optimistic, but 3 or 4, because you're essentially involving everybody that has to develop the product in the planning process. So it's not a top-down approach. It's not a management saying we have to deliver this, that, and that by the end of the quarter. It is the people who, of course, in alignment with the product owner and other product owners and teams, decide what is a priority, what is achievable, what is realistic, and then you talk to other teams to ensure that what you are planning is actually verified. So ideally, you should have a confidence vote of 3 or 4. Now, this is in the beginning of the quarter. We set up a plan, and then we have the regular Scrum events. If you're following Scrum, that would be you have the planning of the sprint, you have the different commitments from different teams, and you have a sprint review where you demonstrate what you have delivered as a squad together. Now, this is perfectly fine, but you're demonstrating only one thing, only what you have achieved. This is why we have the tribal showcase. The tribal showcase can be done once a month, every 6 weeks. Doesn't really have a set timeline, but usually once a month is a good idea. The tribal showcase, unlike the sprint review, shows the combined effort of the different squads. So you're not showing only what you have developed, only your features, but you're showing how your features act and behave in collaboration with the features developed by the other squads. You're showing an end-to-end flow of a product, of an application that you're building. It's usually that, like, similarly to the sprint review, you shouldn't have like a major preparation for the tribal showcase. It should be transparent and what is really being developed for the past 6 weeks. And this is probably my favorite comic strip. So before Spotify, we had departments and directors and teams and managers. And after Spotify, we have a lot of fancy names. We have tribes and leads and chapters and squads. So what is really the difference? Well, Spotify is very culture driven. I mentioned in the beginning that a lot of companies wanted to figure out what is the secret ingredient behind the success of Spotify. And when they discovered the Spotify model, a lot of companies did try to implement it, and a lot of them failed. Even in the white paper that was presented by Spotify, they said that the model shouldn't be copied and pasted somewhere. It does work for their environment, and it is always evolving because they're very data driven. So they experiment, they see if something works, they continue to do it. If it doesn't work, they scrap it. So it's not like the traditional framework or methodology that you could just copy paste into place. The real reason behind the success of Spotify is their culture and the mindset. Because, like, similarly to any agile framework, there is a difference between doing agile and being agile. You can have all of the Scrum ceremonies and not be agile and not have the benefit of agility. If your people don't believe in it, if you don't follow the mindset and practices. So, according to Spotify, you should focus less on formal processes. And you shouldn't focus on standardization across all squads that you have in the company. You should allow them, of course, standardization in terms of chapter work. It is there because you together as a team decide what are the processes that should be followed, what are the best architectural decisions, like what is the code quality that we are looking for. But other than that, each team is more or less free to choose what are the frameworks, what are the practices that they want. There isn't one size fits all. You have more autonomy and more trust in the teams and less top-down management. I mentioned that some of the best features that Spotify has have actually come up from engineers' ideas. These were not suggested by management, by product owners, etc. And this is one of the reasons why it's a bit scary for a lot of companies to start the Spotify model transition because it is a culture change. And culture change, like any change, it takes a lot of time. And a lot of time to teach people to be empowered, to teach people to make decisions, to make them feel safe that even if they make a mistake, it's fine and we'll learn from our mistakes. The approach is also value over business, meaning that they try to motivate their people, they try to avoid burnout, stress. They want to maximize the value of the work that they are providing, to maximize their productivity rather than to work long hours and eventually burn people out. They want to minimize dependency, which is very difficult, especially for established companies. Now, if you're a startup like Spotify was once, they like the Spotify model evolved out of their actions, out of their environment. It was something that happened naturally. They tried something, it worked, and they continued doing it. But if you're an established company, imagine doing this whole agile transformation. You can, of course, change the names of different teams, squad types, but the change behind it, the mindset, and trying to figure what these processes are, that would be very difficult, and this will create a lot of dependencies, especially in the beginning. And there are very interesting case studies if you're interested online. There are even huge banks that try to have this transformation, and as I mentioned, a lot of them crashed. Another thing that Spotify focuses on is productivity. And this is the formula for productivity that they came up with. So productivity to them is effort. So what we are putting it, what we are developing, competence, building the strengths and competences and skills of people, training them, ensuring that they are good at what they do. giving them a safe environment for them to make mistakes, evolve, experiment, test out their ideas, and also motivate them. And defining what awesome looks like. Unlike most agile practices, they don't have a definition of done, they have a definition of awesome. So they actively sit together and think what would awesome look like? What would be an awesome feature? What would be something cool that we want to develop that is not on the market yet? And there is a myth around the Spotify culture and in terms of motivating people. They have an annual survey that asks people if they are happy with the company in terms of like employee experience. And there was a cool email. Why I'm saying it's a myth, because I've seen different figures, whether it's 91% or 97%, but it was like close to 100. So at the end of the survey, they sent out an email to all of the employees in the company stating something in the lines of, like, 97% of you think that Spotify is an awesome place to work. And although this is a good number, it's not good enough for us. So in the next year, we will work to improve the environment for these 3% of people that were not quite happy with our company. And if you believe that there is something that can be improved, please text us at whatever email. So this is the overall culture of the company, and it's something that is very difficult to achieve. This overall culture, however, is something that they try to translate on squad level, the very basic level of the Spotify model. How they do it? Using the team health check. It is a standard checklist that is filled by all of the teams every 3 months. So the different criteria are, as I said, stable. We have teamwork, and you have red, amber, green, whether we are happy, neutral, or unhappy on this feature. So teamwork. Do we play well together? Are we a good team? Is there something we can improve? Pawns or players? Do we believe that we are owners of our decisions, of our future, or do we feel like we are being controlled by management or other teams or tribalists, etc.? Do we know what our mission is? What we are here to deliver? What do you think our health of the code base is? Do we believe that we are writing a clean code? How do we feel about the speed of delivery? Are we being slow? Can we improve on the speed? Are there any impediments that are stopping us towards progression? Is it easy to release? As I mentioned, release is something very important to Spotify. They want to have releases as a routine, something that is done on the daily basis, something that is not a big deal. So this is why this is one of the features that they are asking teams about. Learning. Do we believe that we are learning something every day? Do we believe that in our squad we are developing and growing? Are we delivering value? Are the features that we are delivering bringing value to a user? Are we developing the product in the right way? Do we have a suitable process for our team? Is there something that we can change in the process to make it easier? Is there an event, a ceremony, something that we can scrap that is not working for us, but we are still doing it? And is it fun? Is it fun to work together? Is it fun in the company? Can we have a fun event together? You have this every 3 months for every squad. And you can see here the different indicators that say what is the progression, what is the trend. In our case, for teamwork, for team A, it's red, but we have a downward facing indicator, which means that in the previous team health check, it was probably yellow or green, so something changed. Now, looking at the team health check, what an agile coach would do, for the team, they'll try to investigate what is the reason. Not only the reason behind the negative trends, so what changed, what made people feel worse off, But also, what is the reason behind the positive trend? Because it also gives us information. They mentioned Spotify is very data driven against opinion driven. So we don't want to of course you want to know the feelings of the people of different squads, but you want to understand what is the actual fact. And actual facts you can learn only when you experiment. So why teamwork has decreased? What made us feel more empowered in the team? These are the types of questions that can be asked. The team health check, it is monitored throughout the year. Improvements and adjustments are made. And even if you're not using the Spotify model, it is a nice way to conduct a retrospective once in a while. Now, should you try it? It depends. As he said, even Spotify said that it's not something that you should copy paste. They don't encourage any company to use it, not because they can't use it. There are many companies that successfully have implemented the Spotify model, but it requires a lot of effort and you should tailor it to your environment. You should have different phases of the implementation. You can start with squads in a particular department or a particular product that your company is developing, and you can see how that goes. And then scale from there, add more teams, have a tribe. I'm working on a project that has about 13 teams, and a year and a half into the project, only now they're considering adding tribes into the picture. So you should experiment and see how it works before you have the full-blown solution, before you ask 200 or 300 people to work under the Spotify model. Put an emphasis on trust and building relations. Building relations within a team, having stable teams, this is something that is very similar to Scrum. You want to have the same people in a team so they form these strong relations and they feel confident. They can share their opinions, share ideas, and don't feel like their ideas will be rejected because they are new to the team. The other level of building trust and relationships is on the chapter level. The chapter is the building block of all of the good practices within the product. So it should be it should be in a leading position. The chapter lead should be somebody who is not necessarily the most senior person. Of course, you want to have somebody who is senior, who can help people grow. Because first, this person is going to also be part of the teams. So it's somebody who is actually working on the product. But you need somebody who is a people person, who can establish relationship with everybody so people can share issues and find ways to solve them together. Empower people and teams. Teams should be able to make their own decisions as long as they are not affecting or majorly affecting any other teams. It shouldn't be a problem. And this is something that many established companies have an issue with. Because usually in big corporations, you have a very top-down approach. You have management decisions that are then cascaded to every single person in the organization. And here we have a bottom-up approach. So of course you have some roadmap, you have a vision of where the product should go, but a lot of the ideas come from the people and from the teams. Experiment and test what actually works for you. Even if you are a new company, you're developing fast, you're following the steps of Spotify, it doesn't mean that everything is going to work perfectly. So test it out. If it doesn't work, scrap it. It's not a waste of time because it's moving you closer to the end goal, to developing an awesome product. And expect to have mistakes. Like, it's going to happen for sure. And with that, it was a pleasure talking to you today. If you have any questions, I will check them in the chat box. If not, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone.